Guys, it's not all English tea and scones when it comes to living in the countryside in England. Guys, get it from me. It's the third winter that we've been living in rural England, up north, in the countryside. Beautiful, picturesque and everything. But there is a side to life in rural England that I will delve into in this video. Of course, this varies from limited opportunities, isolation, and shortages in terms of housing. That side of living in England, of course, goes unnoticed or doesn't really get factored into when people are planning their relocation to the UK. Of course, people do focus on other things like, oh, I've got my visa, I'm now going to live the dream, but they forget, or maybe they miss a chance to reflect on where they are going. And trust me, we were one of those people. We are that family that all that was on our mind when we got our visas was, yes, now it's time to start living the dream. Now we are going to start all over again and live our life. But little did we know there's a side to it, which I'll share with you in this video. Guys, a big welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Florence. For those of you that are watching me for the first time, on this platform, we do talk about life in the diaspora, life abroad, opportunities, struggles, everything, you name it, we do share on this platform. The whole point why we come here is for you to see life abroad or life in the diaspora through our eyes. So everything that we share here is based on our experiences and the things that we share with our friends and family. So guys, without much ado, let's get straight into it. So for me, when I realized like there was a side to it, we were more than happy when we got our job offer and everything. Of course, coming from Africa, this was the dream, perfect dream. But I do remember when we rang family who lived here, we had always lived here like for over 20 years or so. And we said, oh, we got an offer to come to the UK. And they asked like, where are you coming to? Obviously with the hope that we were coming to the big city close to them and everything. And we said, we are coming to Cumbria. The biggest question they asked was, are you sure that's in England? Are you sure that's not in Scotland or Wales or somewhere else? Well, for us, that meant like they'd never heard of such a place. And I mean, it's not funny, but like, just like the rest of us there, to go on Google, on maps and everything, to actually check out like where about is Cumbria. But for us, none of that really mattered. We just wanted to come anyway. So we moved over, everything beautiful. But guys, obviously, if you're coming from Africa like me, your idea of living in England is like big buildings, all the glitz and glamour, lights, everything beautiful. And obviously, where I live now, doesn't fit the criteria. But anyway, we're here. So I'll share with you some of the downside. And it's not so down. Like I know you'll be wondering, you'll be thinking like it's so rural. It's not so rural. We've got electric, running water, everything. We do have like a few shops. We've got bus routes and stuff. But it's still rural England, especially when you compare it with where other people and where most migrant communities thrive. First and foremost, I would like to talk about isolation as a downside to living like in rural England, especially for a migrant. I'll share with you my experiences, guys. To say, I do remember when I was looking for a place for my kids to go to school to. Of course, I was cognizant of the fact that there were chances they were going to be the only black people where they learn. And truth be told, yes, they were. So you can imagine all the curiosity around it. Everyone is curious about where you come from, what you eat, do you speak English, things like that. But anyway, it's part and parcel of experiencing the culture. However, for us as parents, working parents, full-time working parents, what that meant was we were going to struggle with childcare because we didn't have as many migrants, especially Zimbabweans, in our community. So that meant like everything that we do revolves around us and our family. And it's been like that for the past 3 years. I know I've shared a video where I spoke about like why most migrants are giving up on the UK journey, why people are going back home. And trust me, you feel isolation, especially when you feel like you're on your own and everything that you have to do works around you. You don't have any people offering support in terms of like, oh, can we babysit for you? Or can we have the kids for the weekend so that you have time for yourselves? So that can really like weigh you down. But thank goodness for us so far, we are surviving. So it hasn't been too bad. Of course, it takes you time to integrate, and it's based on who you are as a person. Are you an outgoing person? Are you somebody who is open to then integrating into other communities, sharing childcare and support with other people from other nationalities, and not just saying, I need my own people, I need to network with Zimbabweans only, but you end up having to extend it to even the English community, other African and Asian communities around you. And trust me, the experience is beautiful. Kids know no color or race. Kids enjoy it. Kids have integrated so well for us. Also, whilst I'm still talking on isolation, what that means is even the people that you meet at work, it's limited diversity, to be honest. I know there's a policy, it's more or less like a cross-board to say, oh, we're a diverse community. But trust me, you really, really feel different when you live in rural England, because there's so few of you. And you have to be somebody who is open to people asking and getting curious about who you are as a person. And while we're still talking about isolation, trust me, guys, it took me nearly like 2.5 years for me to find like an African hairdresser, somebody who could do my hair, simple things like that. Honestly, so you can imagine, I had to learn a whole lot of things, from having to plait my own hair to having to do my own two girls' hair. So you can imagine. So in as much as it's a downside, the isolation, but it taught me a few skills, a few life skills, which meant I would save on a few pounds. Guys, there's so much that I could say in terms of my personal experiences and isolation, but I would like to talk also about the limited services when you live in rural England. So what that means is, I know a lot of people think like, oh, we've got trams, we've got bullet trains, public transport system is just perfect and everything. It's not, because I live in rural England. Of course, if I have to go to the train station, it's like maybe 2.5 or 3 miles away, which means like that's a bit of a walk. I can't walk with the girls to the train station. So what that meant was, definitely a car was a must. Of course, what that meant was, even in as much as I was coming to do care work, I could not do that care work on foot or best on public transport. Why? Because people live so far away from each other, even the people that we serve as a community, or in terms of our work, it means they're so far apart. Driving was a must, having a car is a must. So if you're watching this video and you're thinking, I want to relocate, your decisions have to be based on, definitely location is a big factor in terms of how you integrate and how you would fare, even in terms of your work and all the preparation that goes into it. So I do sometimes wonder, if I didn't drive, how was I going to get on with my work? I just wonder, how was I even going to get on with life in general? If I want to get from point A to point B, how was I going to do it? It was just bound to be totally different. Also, some of the services, like the big shops, maybe restaurants, everything, it's a bit far from where we live, because this is like a little place, little villages and things. So it takes away from that experience of like somebody who have, if they were living maybe in London, Glasgow, Edinburgh, everywhere else, big towns, big places, Manchester, things like that. So again, there's a downside to that. So even when we talk about like the healthcare system and everything, it takes longer for you to get a referral based on where you come from. It's just difficult. It's just hard work, because everything else is just so far-fetched from you. I'll give you an example of where I work now. Of course, I do drive about like 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the weather. That shows you how far you have to go for opportunities. Of course, I do remember when I got this job off, I had three offers, and I had to pick this one. All these offers were just a trek away, whichever way I needed to just like go for a long drive to get to work. Whereas if somebody lives in London or wherever, all they need is to just like get on the train or get on a bus and they're at work. Buses are like every maybe 3 to 5 minutes if you live on the bus route. It's unlike here. I know there are times when I do wish like, oh, I don't want to drive, it's snowing, I want to get on a bus. But then the times would just not work with the nature of my work. So what that means is I'll need to brave the weather and just be on the road. So that's another downside to living in rural England. I'll even talk about employment opportunities as a downside to it. There's not so many opportunities. I'll give you an example, like where I live, there's no McDonald's, there's no KFC, there's no all these major food outlets that, Starbucks or anything. So this brings me to think, like, if my daughter, when she's older and she's wanting to work, she'll obviously have like limited exposure in terms of opportunities. So even for me and my husband, when it comes to opportunities, things that he could do, things that suit our lifestyle, things that suit our childcare needs, obviously he ended up having to find a job where he drives for about 20 minutes if there is no traffic. But if there's traffic, then what that means is it takes longer. That shows you there's also a downside to living in the countryside, because opportunities are limited. And where he has to go like to the big city to work. He couldn't find a job that works around our needs in this small place that we live in. But that's not to take away from all the beauty, peace, and everything else, lovely community that we live in. I will speak on access to educational facilities and training. Nearly everybody that I know, my friends and community, because I'm somebody who is for success. I'm somebody who loves people, who love to upgrade and upskill. And one of the things that I envy about where they live, in as much as big cities and everything, is the fact that they can access universities. Like, for me, if I want to access a uni, again, it's not where I live. It's not within this community, but it's so far away from where I live. If I want to access a college, it's not where I live. We don't have that. Any training institution, we don't have it here. So that's another downside for living in the countryside. However, there's so many benefits, there's so many plus sides, there's so many cons of living in the countryside. I think I made a video. If you haven't watched, go and watch a video that I did where the video is on why we moved up north of England. It's beautiful. So many benefits of coming here, from low cost of living, low rentals, and things like that. Guys, the other thing I want to talk about as a challenge when you live in the countryside is housing challenges. I do remember, I've shared this before, where I said my husband and I came first, which is okay, and the organization that brought us had sorted accommodation for us. But when we were thinking now the kids have to come and we had to look for accommodation, I don't want to lie to you, that was the biggest challenge we've had to go through. It was hard work having to find suitable accommodation. We attended so many house tours and things like that with the agency, but it was just so difficult for them to pick us or for us to access. And these houses are so hard to come by, especially when you're looking at where you work and where you find the house. Most of these houses were in the big city, but where I worked was this part of the country in the rural side. So what it meant was again, for me to attend my first school, I had to drive for 20 minutes. So it's just not workable. Of course, I do now see a lot of construction is going on, a lot of housing projects are going on. So hopefully in the future, everything will be handy and accessible for everybody. Last but not least, guys, there's limited social activity when you live in rural England and you're a migrant. I'm from Zimbabwe, and obviously we are happy people. We love going to concerts and things like that. And every once in a while, I know there are some artists that do come from Zimbabwe and they're performing. But it's so hard for you to... They're always performing in big cities. They're always performing in Birmingham, Leeds, Leicester, London, everywhere else, but never this part of the country, because there's not so many of us. So if you are that kind of person who loves the social life, who is a social butterfly, then definitely this may not be the place for you. And even when we talk about just the English concerts and things like that, big concert, you won't find them being hosted this part of the country. You will have to stick with local entertainment, which may not be for you, because it's just so up here. It's just so English to an extent that you have to be at a certain level of having integrated in the community for you to be able to enjoy that. Guys, last but not least, this is based on my experience. I think after the children had come, one of the children, we needed to sort out her passport. Guys, you never find those services near you. The consulate is in London, which is 7 hours away from where we live. So it's hard for you to access such services. In the event that you need the services of your consulate, definitely you won't get them like same day. They're not as accessible because you have to go in person physically to the consulate. So those are some of the downsides of living in rural England. Guys, that's all I had for you in this video. Just an insight into how, if one would want to decide whether or not to come and live in rural England. I know a lot of people do reach out to me and say, Flo, I would love to come and live up north because there is low cost of living. The rentals are very reasonable. But life doesn't just revolve around cost of living and rentals. There's more to life. There's more opportunities, learning opportunities, services and amenities, diversity, and social integration as well. Social moral support is very key. So you decide wisely, you choose wisely, not to just like decide, I want to move up north based on the fact that the rentals are a bit reasonable. You could end up hurting all the other things that do contribute to life being livable abroad. Guys, I'll see you in our next video. And if you're a new subscriber, thank you so much. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so, as we continue to share a lot on life in the diaspora, opportunities, the struggles, and everything that you may want to know and understand about life in the diaspora. Guys, I'll see you in our next video, and bye for now.